Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today's episode is going to shake your brain noodle up a little bit, which is exactly what we love to do on this show. We're going to talk to somebody who's been there, done that, and he's going to yell at you through the microphone. So just be prepared, but I promise you, pre-vetted, and we all need to hear it. He's the author of a book called Be Different or Be Dead. He's taken a startup to over $1 billion in sales. His name is Roy Osing. Welcome to the show, Roy. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Brandon. I'm honored to be able to speak with you and your audience today. So thank you.
I am honored to have you here. Not every day does somebody come on the show who's grown a startup or any company to over $1 billion in sales, and then go around yelling at people about being different. I think this is fantastic, Roy. Tell me what's behind the title of your book, Be Different or Be Dead.
Okay, so the idea is really simple. It's all about differentiation. Okay, it occurred to me and I've witnessed it. I've been doing this for 30 to 40 years, okay, as an executive leader and a CMO and an entrepreneur. And one of the problems we have right now in business, and we've had it for a long time, is the fact that businesses are finding it really difficult to differentiate themselves from the competition. Okay, they talk about being better, they talk about being best, they talk about being number one, they talk about being the market leader. That's a claptrap as far as I'm concerned, okay? And that's my name for it because it doesn't mean anything, okay? Because who defines better and best and number one, et cetera, et cetera? And to a customer, it's not really helpful to make a decision as to who they're going to do business with when everybody's saying they're the best. If everybody's saying they're the best, they're all the same. They're sitting in a herd and they can't differentiate and distinguish themselves. So my whole life has been to try and figure out how to differentiate organizations and people, because this whole concept of differentiation clearly is an important consideration when looking at your career. You have competitors. You need to be different in a way that people care about. And that's the point I'm going to make here. Being different in my world is not about the color of your hair. It's not about your pronouns. It's not about your sexual preferences. It's not about your political affiliations and your ideologies. It's about doing things differently in a way that people care about. It serves other people. Okay, so if you think about it in a marketing context, it's about, I have a customer group. How can I satisfy what they crave, not need, because everybody plays in the need space. Roy doesn't play in the need space. He plays in the craving space. How can I satisfy what people crave in a way that nobody else does? And so the differentiation piece has driven me, okay, in terms of everything I did in business and my personal life. I mean, I'm a grandfather. I'm a be different or be dead grandfather. You can talk about that if you want. I'm on the cutting edge of that with my grandkids. And so my quest has been to create things that are clearly different than everybody else in a way that the people that I'm trying to serve care about. And so that's the genesis of the whole idea of being different. And growing a startup or an early stage internet company to $1 billion started out with, how can we be different? How we have a whole lot of competitors coming into this world, and I know what they do, right? And we're going to separate ourselves and we're going to do things differently and realize, as I was mentioned to you earlier, this business sat in a telephone company. Okay, so define traditional in any other way. I mean, whoa, we're talking about a really tough culture, engineering dominated, order takers, etc. And we had to morph that culture into something that was nimble, highly competitive, and outrageous in terms of the way we performed in the marketplace. We did that starting out with, how are we going to be different? How are we going to do things differently? And so that drove my my world as a leader, which, and I got to tell you, mate, I get goosebumps every time I think about what this team of people actually achieved. Like, we didn't know we were going for $1 billion. All right. We didn't know it. And looking back on it in retrospect, and I've talked to people who were on my teams, many times, and or because they're still around, and they all get goosebumps when they think about what we did. And what better measure, okay, of how you feel about what you've done than getting goosebumps. Sorry, I diverted that a little bit.
No, that's so cool though, because that's really what this is all about. Anybody can start a business. There is literally no barrier to entry. You just have to go form an LLC and boom, you're in business, right? What's the difference between that and a billion-dollar company? Well, probably not a whole lot, but you're hitting on it here with being different and being really, really good at what you're doing. So I'm curious, from the start of when you took over with this company, I don't know if you're allowed to say the name of the company, but I am curious about that. So I'll put that out there, but no pressure. What were some of the things you did to be different in the beginning, and how did that stack up to ultimately build a billion-dollar plus business?
Yeah, sure. The company, it's a Canadian company. It's TELUS Corporation, and this was a few years ago. Of course, when the internet started, the business is now $18 billion a year. Okay, so I kind of like to think my team had a little bit to do with getting the kind of like the run rate on top line going.
Well, you
Uh,
can't get to the 18th million unless you get the first, right? Billion, excuse me.
you sort of have to get a billion at a time, right? but but look at yeah, so the question, how do you do that, is really a question about how do you get unbelievable growth in a business. Okay, and I want to say to you and your audience, if you want to disrupt, if you want to take your business to another level, if you want to create unimaginable growth, you cannot do it by continuing to do the same old things that you're doing now. You cannot do it by practicing textbook business 101. At least I couldn't. And I'm a pretty smart guy. Really? You can't do it. And so the sorts of things that we ended up doing were simple. They appealed to, I would say, the human emotion, grounded in good strategy to get them to execute. And so there's four kind of areas, and we could do a whole conversation on this. Four general areas that that I focused on as a leader. We've mentioned one. One is differentiation, and I had to actually create what I call the only statement. Okay, I spoke earlier about claptrap. I had to come up with my only way to differentiate a company in a competitive world, and I came up with this notion called the only statement. The only statement is really simple. It says we are the only ones who. Like, we're not better, we're not best, we're not, number one, we're the only ones who do what we do. And so I had to create a process, right, for actually developing that. And so I've called it my only statement, an only value proposition, to differentiate it from today's common claptrap ways of doing it, which is the universal selling proposition. Okay, if you do a deep dive on that stuff, it doesn't work. Okay, because it talks about what you think you are, Brandon, not what you are in a way that's different from your competition that serves your target market in a unique way. There's only one process that does that, and yep, it's mine. Everybody else is talking about textbook USPs. Come on over to Roy's OVP. All right, so I had to create that. So differentiation. The second piece is get the plan just about right and focus on execution, because results do not come from the efficacy of your plan. I don't care about what they say. All right. Sure, you need to have directionally and notionally an idea about where you want to go. But why would you spend 80% of your time creating a strategy in an imperfect world? Okay, it actually implies that you know something that we don't. In other words, you have some sort of divine wisdom about where you're going to be 5 years from now. And quite frankly, that's bullshit. Nobody has that ability. Okay. What you need is to get a direction right, execute really well, learn from execution, and adjust on the run. And I call it planning on the run. And so I created a planning process, Brandon, that basically gets your game plan. I call it a strategic game plan, gets that done in literally 3 days. Okay. And you can be executing this puppy in the fourth day, and it's all based on, and it's all structured to allow you to get to execution quicker. Okay. Stop studying and trying to be perfect in a world that will never allow you to be perfect. Does that make any sense? No. And in fact, it's getting worse. I mean, and yet I sit around watching organizations spend copious amounts of time with subject matter experts and predictive modeling and all this kind of stuff, trying to formularize a set of variables that have no formula. They don't. Okay. At least nobody's shown me a formula for the kinds of stochastic stuff that businesses run into when they start trying to achieve and perform at a high level. So the second piece for me was, hey, we're going to head west. People would think I'm crazy. So I'm your head west strategy guy. Okay. But I'm going to execute the heck out of it. We're going to learn where we go. So growing is critical that you focus on execution. Put the textbook down. Strategic planning 101 doesn't work. You need to overlay it with some sort of strategic focus. And there's a whole bunch of components in there, which we could talk about at some point in time. I mean, about elements of execution that I drilled down on. One I thought was kind of a cool concept. I call cleanse the inside. I mean, how can you execute well and deliver value quickly if your inside is clogged up with bureaucracy? Rules don't make any sense to customers. Okay, policies that restrict frontline people from saying yes. They're saying no, right? Because they said it. So there's a whole bunch of fun in there that we got going, but it's all based on enhancing execution. The third piece is servant leadership. I call it leadership by serving around. You want to get to $1 billion? You don't get to $1 billion by sitting in the boardroom talking to the chairman or talking to your boss, okay, about strategy. And yet, I mean, do the sniff test, okay, and you'll find that probably most leaders do that. I did not. I was a guy who was in the trenches with frontline people every single day. In fact, my bosses would get mad at me because I didn't have the time for them. Okay. I wanted to be close to the people doing the work, doing the execution. Why? Simple. Because if I could help them execute better, guess what happens to my results? Boom. Right through. So this whole thing was oriented towards performance. And so, yeah, I did things like bear pit sessions, right? Where I would get, functional groups together. And it was just Roy with no entourage, baby. It was just me in there with people who were doing the work. And I had to earn their trust. I had to earn currency with them. And it got to the point where it was literally a mass crowd sourced, how can I help exercise, where they would tell me how I could help. And basically the responsibility was up to me to deliver. If I didn't deliver, it would be obvious that those sessions were bullshit and they wouldn't do it. But it was funny. People were signing up for them because it was an avenue for them to let the leader know what was wrong, and they trusted that we would get things done. The last piece I want to mention. So you want $1 billion, you got to differentiate, you got to execute, you got to serve as a leader. And the last thing is sometimes you have to do it yourself as a leader. I call it strategic micromanagement. I call it fingerprint leadership. There are things that should never be delegated, Brandon, never. Okay, and yet look around. I mean, the world teaches leaders you need to delegate. You need to get out of their faces, Roy. You need to stop pressing them day in and day out. And yet that's not what I'm talking about. There are certain things that, yeah, operationally routine stuff you shouldn't delegate, okay? But things that are strategically required and important can only be done by the leader. Let me give you an example of a thing that I did that turned out to be quite interesting. And it was, our strategy was really heavy on customer loyalty, and we created a service strategy. We could talk about that too, because I had to create my own process for a service strategy. And it really focused on delivering amazing moments, I call them. People call it other things these days, CX, and they give them all sorts of anyways. The two choices were to deliver the philosophy. Our strategy is going to be to deliver amazing moments to customers and let everybody figure it out, or to actually get involved with defining and architecting what that moment looked like at the customer transaction. Okay. Well, my conclusion was, if I left it to everybody, they're all going to have their own views as to what that looks like. Right? Now, typically when you do that, what happens? You get dysfunction. It's not because people are trying to screw around. You've just empowered them to do something you shouldn't do. because they're going to come up with different approaches. And so I got heavily involved in architecting this moment with frontline people, et cetera. And we came up with a template. Okay, here's what the customer moment's going to look like. And it was amazing, right? I got so much hassle from the HR guys, right, that I shouldn't get involved in stuff like this. And we were unionized at the time. So I got hell from the union. You're trying to do their job. Didn't get it, right? But at the end of the day, we had a roadmap and we had a template of what that moment had to look like. And that led to things like how to measure it with customers, how to improve it. We had some basis. And more importantly, by my involvement, it mattered. Like service for 100 years. People talk about it, Brandon, but they don't know enough about it to get involved and actually execute on customer experiences. It's a great thing to talk about. You're right. That's more claptrap. Yeah, we provide delightful experiences, right? And then you sit in a call center for 15 minutes waiting for somebody to answer you, right? I mean, how disingenuous is that? It's intellectually dishonest. And so, yeah, I was a do-it-yourself guy, focused on customers, focused on retention, asked how I can help, tried to be helpful as a leader. All of those things together, and I can't give you, kind of like a quadratic equation, right, with a bunch of dependent or one dependent and a bunch of independent variables. I can't give you that because that's the kind of thing that unfortunately takes your mind off the ball. Look for ways of lighting fires in people, give them good direction, help them. I mean, it's not that complicated.
Yeah, I love this conversation so much because this is what's missing in business these days. We wanna follow the textbooks, like you said, and we wanna see what the gurus are doing on social media, and it's not it. And I think where this conversation falls off the tracks that I want to highlight is the notion of being different, right? Where people are like, well, we're different, we're just out of the box, and we do things in a crazy way. The What makes you different from that methodology, it sounds like, is you were intentionally and specifically different. Like you focused on an area of your business, you created a different way of doing things, you systematized it and made sure it was then consistently different. So how did you go about doing that? Before we wrap up here, like how did you say, okay, this area, customer service for example, is the next area we'll focus on being different? Was there any sort of 80/20 analysis to say like this is going to get us a huge lift and then we'll move on, or was it something bigger than that?
I was something bigger than that. It started off with as a business. Okay, what do we have to do? And so the process that I've had to create here, and it wasn't a process at the time, okay, because this was happening around us, right? This is real time shit, man. I mean, this was like descending on us. We had small companies coming in trying to eat our lunch because we had high prices because we just came out of monopoly. We had all this stuff going. Deregulation. We had both of my arms tied behind my back. It was like a war. And so, no, we didn't have time to sit back and carefully analyze the situation, right? And get the subject matter experts in a room and get their view. No, it was like this. We got to get going. What are we going to do? And so we I hit on an approach at a very high level that I believe strategically, okay, would get us to where we were going to get to. But again, right, the proof was in the execution. And so this is the only statement, okay? And for you listening out there, stop what you're doing. I want you to work on creating an only statement for your business, okay? And if you need help, email me for God's sake. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to try and help. This is what we came up with. Okay, this business, we said we are the only ones who unleash the power of the internet by delivering customized, integrated solutions anywhere, anytime. Now, it turns out that that's a very huge mouthful, okay? And there's a lot inside there. And so the process we used is we took that, we created as a team, myself and my vice presidents. We created that, and then we do what I call we unpacked it. Okay, like what do we mean by unleash the power of the internet? Right? What do we mean by delivering customized solutions, integrated solutions? What do we mean by anywhere, anytime? You have to keep working that and working that down to a lower level of detail so you can explain it to people. Like an example of a customized integrated solution was intended to leverage on the fact that we had other products and services by virtue of being a telephone company that nobody else had, right? We had, quote, the old long distance. Oh, I know, right? Let me tell you, that was a huge leveraging factor for us. We provided home service. We provided telephone. So we got into this integration issue where we integrated all that with IP. Okay. And that's how we dragged those old monopoly customers into the internet. And that was behind unleashing the power of. It was about dragging people. And we came up with an advertising communication strategy called "The Future is Friendly." You see, one of the things about new technology is it scares people. And in the day when the internet was coming in on us, people didn't understand it. They were all voice people. I'm not just talking about in the telephone. I mean, any business. It was a PBX, brother. It was a PBX, right? And a multi-line telephone. And somehow we had to get them over into the IP world and make them comfortable with that. So the genesis of the Future is Friendly campaign, which, by the way, and I've been gone since 2002, Brandon. So I've been gone for, okay, that campaign, that strategy has life, man. It's still there. It leverages, and you check it out. You Google this afterwards. What does it look like? It leverages on animals. We were the first telephone company, business actually, to use animals, okay, as a creative way of expressing friendliness. And we applied that against technology. And so the Future is Friendly was sort of the backdrop of this only statement that said, it's going to be okay, right? We're here for you. It's going to be okay. And these are the sorts of capabilities that we created to support customers through the transition. Nobody else was doing that. They were flogging IP at cheap prices. They were easy pickings, dude. They were easy pickings because our customers, who we had for a long time, they were at risk to move. Now, some of them did, of course. You always get that. But we played the high value market share game, not the market share game. There were a lot of customers that, quite frankly, were not profitable, and we didn't, that they were going to go. We got that. So we managed the share where everybody else, of course, is trying to increase share. We managed it. So we didn't want just everybody. And so that whole strategy came from, we're going to unleash the power of the internet, and we're the only ones who does that. Now, the thing you got to realize out there is that only statements are temporal. Okay, they exist at a point in time, and they're always draft. They're never, ever for real forever. Why is that? It's because the world won't let us. The world keeps changing. Competitors keep changing. Customers start yielding different sorts of power, etc. And so you have to move with that. You have to shift with that. And so the only statement becomes a bit of an amoeba. Okay, it looks this way today, and a year from now, it may look this way. And that's a good thing. As long as you're driven to be the only one that does what you do in a way that your customers care about, you're on the right track. Let it be whatever it's going to be. A lot of people have difficulty with the fact that it's not permanent, Brandon. And the reason for that is we teach them that the answer we come up with as a result of the formula, right? You can see it coming, right? Is forever going to be right. Well, that's not the way it works in business. I'm sorry. You can't formularize human beings. And so you got to have a model that moves with them, not pushes something on them and expects something in return. So exciting stuff.
Roy, I love it. This episode was a gold mine, and we could have 7 more episodes. We could have 4 for sure, diving deep on all of your 4 principles. So we will definitely have you back in the future. But this, at least for to start, a little teaser on differentiation was full of gold nuggets. So thank you so much for being here. Where can the listener go to grab your book and learn more about you?
So bedifferentorbedead.com is my website. Please come and visit. I've tried to get as many resources in there as I could. There's a page in there that talks about the 7 books that I've written, including the latest one, which is how I took a startup to $1 billion in sales using audacious, unheard of ways. I blog every week on this stuff, and I've been doing it since '09. Okay, so this is not new. So there's a ton. So if you wanted, for example, information on the only statement, go to the website, search the blog on the only statement, and you'll get lots of content. So hopefully that's helpful. And the other thing is that I have an email address, roy.osing@gmail.com, and I'm really happy, Brandon, to have a one-on-one with people who are interested to learn more. And I mean, I have people sending me draft copies of their only statement from podcasts like this, to say, wow, I really think that's cool. I've created this. What do you think? Ah, man, I love that. I love it. So I'm approachable, I'm simple, and I'm more than willing to help. Because again, I'm trying to change the narrative. I'm trying to change the narrative and help do that. And in order to do that, I need you, and I need your audience to take a baby step. You know, we can take a baby step. We can be together in an army of being different, okay, in a way that people care about. And so the world needs us. I mean, it's getting so boring, so pedantic, right? I mean, it's seriously, and to your point earlier, it's not just about being different. It's about strategically creating a unique place in the world that delivers amazing value to the people you serve. That's what this is about. And it's missing in action, dude. It's missing in action.
Amen. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's why this podcast exists. Roy, thank you for coming here and disrupting the listeners and giving us hope of a better future. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure.
And only yelling a little bit, but we needed it. I told you, listen, wherever you're listening or watching, first and foremost, go check out Roy's website and email him. Take action, right? Execute. That was the principle he told you about. Prove it. Go execute. Go do something. Make a difference in your business. And also subscribe. Execute on that for me. We love putting these episodes out 5 days a week to get you out of the box you find yourself in business. And who knows, maybe you're the next $1 billion brand if you follow these steps. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at